Obama will decide on Keystone Pipeline during his term. U.S. to return to South China Sea after warship visit. Prince Charles and Camilla start New Zealand and Australia tour. Romania PM Ponta resigns over Bucharest nightclub fire. Prime Minister reaches Netherlands. Well, those were the headlines, now the details. The company behind the pipeline, TransCanada, had wanted to delay the approval process until after his term. The White House said on Tuesday there might be politics at play in the decision by TransCanada. Some analysts think the company is waiting in hopes that the next president would welcome the project. The company had complained for years about delays from the Obama administration and had aggressively urged that the project be approved as quickly as possible. The Keystone XL would send more than 800,000 barrels a day of mostly Canadian oil to Nebraska. From there, the oil would travel to refineries and ports along the U.S. Gulf Coast. The sailing of a U.S. warship within an area claimed by China last week angered Beijing, which issued a warning. ADM Harry Harris, speaking in Beijing, said such moves should surprise no one. An unnamed U.S. official earlier told Reuters similar patrols would take place at least twice a quarter. The guided missile destroyer USS Lassen breached the 12 nautical mile zone that China claims around the Subay and Mischief reefs in the Spratly archipelago. Admiral Harris of the U.S. Pacific Command said in a speech at Peking University, "We have been conducting freedom of navigation operations all over the world for decades, so no one should be surprised by them. Our military will continue to fly, sail, and operate whenever and wherever international law allows. The South China Sea is not and will not be an exception," but he also added that the operations, which he described as routine, should never be constructed as a threat to any nation. Arriving in Wellington to rain and strong winds, Charles and Camilla were greeted by dignitaries, including Prime Minister John Key and his wife Brunner. During their trip, the royal couple are due to see a flotilla of Maori canoes and visit an eco-sanctuary. They will also travel to Australia, where they will meet new Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull, a vocal Republican. Charles and Camilla were greeted by Mr. Key before leaving for a ceremonial welcome at nearby Government House with New Zealand's Governor-General Sir Gerry Matepere. After spending a few days in Wellington, the royal couple will travel to Dunedin, Nelson, Nguruwahia, New Plymouth and Auckland. They are due to visit Turawawai Marae, the home of the King Itanga or Maori monarch, where they will view a waka armada of canoes on the country's longest river, the Waikato, on the North Island. Friday night's blaze in Bucharest started when a band performing at the club set off fireworks. Demonstrators called for Mr. Ponta to step down, complaining of government corruption and poor safety supervision. Mr. Ponta is already facing trial on corruption charges. He became the first sitting Romanian Prime Minister to be formally accused of corruption during the summer on allegations of fraud, tax evasion and money laundering dating back several years. He repeatedly denied the charges, accusing prosecutors of being totally unprofessional. Mr. Ponta said on Wednesday, "He was handing in my mandate, I'm resigning, and implicitly my government too. I hope the government's resignation will satisfy the people who came out in the streets," he said on Romanian TV. Ahead of a visit to the UK, Mr. Sisi told the BBC that Egypt was threatened by extremist groups and feared the collapses suffered by its neighbors. He underlined that Egypt's situation was different to that of Europe. The retired field marshal led the army's overthrow of President Mohamed Morsi in 2013 following mass protests. Since then, more than 1,000 people have been killed and 40,000 are believed to have been jailed in a crackdown on dissent. Most of them have been supporters of the outlawed Muslim Brotherhood, but secular and liberal activists have also been prosecuted for breaking a 2013 anti-protest law that gives the Interior Ministry the power to ban any gathering of more than 10 people. Drones are being used to scan the sandy and hilly terrain, officials say. Kogali Mavia Flight 9268 from Sharm el-Sheikh to St. Petersburg went down on Saturday. All 224 people on board, most of them Russian nationals, died. The Airbus 321 is thought to have broken up in mid-air. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi dismissed as propaganda claims that militants linked to Islamic State brought down the aircraft. The militants have carried out a series of deadly attacks against Egyptian security forces in recent years. On Wednesday, at least 3 people were killed when an attacker drove a car packed with explosives into a police social club in Al Arish, not far from the plane crash site. About 40 bodies were counted at the wreck site by a local reporter. It is unclear how many of the victims were on the plane and how many were on the ground. Juba's Radio Miraya says the plane was heading to Palok in Upper Nile State and crashed just 800 meters from the runway. Presidential spokesman Atene Wek Atene told Reuters news agency that there were at least 2 survivors, a crew member and a child. We'll take a short break here. We'll be back in a moment with the headlines here. Taiwan and China to hold historic summit in Singapore. Maldives declare 30-day emergency. Chota Rajan deportation from bail to India delayed by ash cloud. Japan post share surge on debut. Tom Graveney, former England cricketer, dies aged 88. Welcome back to Millennium TV News. Both said the talks would focus on relations across the Taiwan Straits. China claims sovereignty over Taiwan and views the island as a breakaway province which will one day be reunited with the mainland. But ties have improved since President Ma took office in 2008. The Chinese government threatens to use military force against Taiwan if it ever attempts to gain outright independence. Taiwanese spokesman Chen Yi-hsin said President Ma's aim was to promote peace across the Taiwan Strait and maintain status quo. The declaration by President Abdullah Yameen gives security forces sweeping powers to arrest suspects. It comes 2 days before the planned protest with the country's main opposition, the Maldivian Democratic Party. MDP leader Mohammed Nasheed was jailed in March after a widely criticized conviction under anti-terror laws. President Yameen has declared a state of emergency to ensure the safety and security of every citizen. His spokesman Muaz Ali tweeted. Attorney General Muhammad Anil said a cache of firearms and explosives had recently been discovered, as well as plots to use dangerous weapons. He was due to be deported on Tuesday, but reports now say he will be deported on Wednesday. Rajendra Sadashiv Nikhalje, also known in India as Chota Rajan or Little Rajan, is accused of multiple murders and has long been wanted by police. Nikhalje was detained when he flew into Bali airport from Sydney on Sunday. Police acted on a tip-off from the Australian police, who say had been living there under a different name. Nikhalje, 55, is wanted in the western Indian city of Mumbai in connection with at least 17 causes of murder. Interpol's website states that Nikhalje was born in Mumbai and is wanted on multiple charges including murder and possession and use of illegal firearms. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina reached Netherlands on a 3-day official tour at the invitation of her Dutch counterpart Mark Rutte. A VVIP flight of Biman Bangladesh Airlines carrying the Prime Minister and her entourage members landed at the Amsterdam Schiphol Airport Center in the Dutch capital at 8:30 p.m. Netherlands time, according to BSS. Dutch Minister of Infrastructure and Environment Melanie Schultz van Hagen, Bangladesh Ambassador to the Netherlands Sheikh Mohammed Bilal, and Dutch Ambassador in Dhaka Leonie Margaretha Cohen-Lollerer received the Prime Minister at the airport. Later, she was taken to Grand Hotel Amraat Kurhaus in The Hague, the administrative capital of the Netherlands, where she would stay during her visit. A huge number of expatriate Bangladeshis, including leaders and workers of all European Awami League, greeted Sheikh Hasina when she reached the hotel. On November 4, Hasina will hold bilateral talks with Dutch Prime Minister Rutte at his official residence, Kalthus. Later, she will join a dinner to be hosted in her honor by Mark Rutte. On November 5th, the Premier will join a business seminar and attend a community reception to be accorded by Bangladeshi diasporas in the Netherlands. Now the businesses news. The firm said the problem which it came across while investigating diesel emissions could cost about €2 billion, which is £1.4 billion. Brands including VW, Audi, Skoda and Seat would be affected, a VW spokesman told BBC News. The issue mainly affects diesel but could also include petrol models. The problem lies in the way certain car types with smaller engines were certified to meet carbon dioxide emission standards, the spokesman added. Carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas as opposed to the nitrogen dioxides involved in earlier allegations, which is a pollutant that causes lung disease. The so-called irregularities that have now been found relate to the way in which carbon dioxide emissions and fuel consumption were measured during the technical approval process for some models. On the Frankfurt Stock Exchange, shares in VW were down 5.6% in early trading. The company's shares have lost about a third of their value since September, when the diesel emissions scandal first broke. The IPO was the biggest in the world this year and the largest since Alibaba's record $25 billion deal in 2014. Shares in the parent company Japan Post Holdings closed up 20% on Wednesday. Meanwhile, shares of Japan Post Bank closed up 15%, while Japan Post Insurance soared 56%. The landmark debut marks the Japanese government's largest asset sale in nearly 3 decades. The listing is part of Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's plans to boost the flagging economy by encouraging consumers to invest in the stock market. About 10% of each company was sold to the public in the largest privatization of a state-owned firm since Nippon Telegraph and Telephone in 1987. Now the sports news. After his extradition, he appeared in court in New York, where he pleaded not guilty. He was among 7 officials from World Football's governing body, FIFA, who were arrested in Switzerland in May. He is accused of taking bribes worth millions of dollars from sports marketing companies in connection with the Copa America and Copa do Brasil. If convicted, he would face up to 20 years in prison. The Swiss authorities say he was accompanied by U.S. police officers on a flight from Zurich to New York. The U.S. has indicted a total of 14 current and former FIFA officials and associates on charges of rampant systemic and deep-rooted corruption following a major inquiry by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. An elegant batsman, Graveney played 79 tests for England, scoring 11 centuries and averaging 44.38. He scored more than 47,793 first-class runs, including 122 hundreds, in a career that stretched from 1948 to 1972 and included spells at Gloucestershire, Worcestershire and Queensland. After retiring, he became a BBC commentator and served as the 200th president of the MCC in 2005. He was the first former professional cricketer to be appointed to the post. Graveney captained England once at the age of 41, deputising for Colin Corvey against Australia at Headingley in 1968. His older brother, Ken, died recently at the age of 90. Both were former Gloucestershire captains. Let's have a look at Millennium TV News Recap. Obama will decide on Keystone Pipeline during his term. U.S. to return to South China Sea after warship visit. Prince Charles and Camilla start New Zealand and Australia tour. Romania PM Ponta resigns over Bucharest nightclub fire. Prime Minister reaches Netherlands. You are up to date with our top stories so far here on Millennium TV, and don't forget to log into www.millenniumtv.net. Thank you for staying with us. Allah Hafiz.